দর্শক, চ্যানেল 24 এর বিশেষ আয়োজন মুখোমুখিতে আপনাদেরকে স্বাগত জানাচ্ছি। মুখোমুখিতে আজকে আমাদের সাথে আছে একজন বিশেষ অতিথি, ঢাকার মার্কিন রাষ্ট্রদূত আর্ন মিলার। হ্যালো এক্সেলেন্সি, হাউ আর ইউ?
I'm very well, thank you. Assalamu alaikum and Eid Mubarak. Thank you for the kind invitation to join your program.
Right. Walaikum assalam and Noor, you too. So it's a very tough time we are having. And if I'm not wrong, it's like 1.5 years you are spending in Bangladesh. How's your experience?
I feel extraordinarily privileged to have the honor to represent the people of the United States of America to the people of Bangladesh. You know, there's nowhere else in the world I would rather be a U.S. ambassador than in this remarkable country at this point in time. I see the U.S.-Bangladesh relationship as an indispensable partnership for the 21st century. Mm-hmm. And beyond our shared strategic and economic interests, the real strength of our relationship is our strong people-to-people ties that bind us together. I have been here a year and a half, but in my first 8 months, I visited all 8 divisions of Bangladesh. Everywhere I met someone who had a strong relationship, a strong connection with the United States. They'd either lived there, they had relatives there, or they'd studied there. What a wonderful time to be here as this nation celebrates the 100th anniversary of the birth of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. And then, of course, next year, we get to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Bangladesh's independence and celebrate the enduring partnership between our two great countries.
US and Bangladesh and every country is going through quite a tough time. It's just COVID-19, and it's same for everybody. How, in this situation, the bilateral relations that you want to take ahead, or you had a dream to take ahead, how that's going far?
Well, I think this is a great opportunity for us to recommit to ourselves. This is a global challenge. It's not just a challenge for an individual country. And the only way we're going to get through it as this world we share gets through all major issues is to work together. But on behalf of the U.S. Embassy, I want to offer my condolences to all Bangladeshis most directly affected by COVID-19. I want to salute the frontline care providers, the public security officials, all those providing essential services who risk their health to protect ours every day. And, you know, I would include in that roster of heroes journalists. Because journalists provide what every vibrant democracy requires in a time of crisis, and that's objective information and facts and the truth. You know, one of the great lessons of this global crisis is how truly and profoundly interdependent we all are. We're all in this together, Americans and Bangladeshis. To date, we've provided over $56 million for the COVID-19 response here in Bangladesh. And over the past 5 months, our two great nations have helped repatriate our citizens from the U.S. and from Bangladesh. We're working now on the post-COVID-19 economic recovery. Right. We're working on our Indo-Pacific vision that I know we'll talk about, and also the Rohingya crisis.
Right. So on this discussion, Excellency, it's time for a first break. We'll come back and discuss more about other issues like the Rohingya crisis and how it's going back because of this pandemic situation. It's getting less important. But I'll ask you that question after I come back from the break. দর্শক, মুখোমুখির এই পর্যায়ে একটা বিরতির সময় হলো, সাথে থাকুন, ফিরছি একটু পর। দর্শক, আমন্ত্রণ আরো একবার মুখোমুখিতে। আজকে আমরা কথা বলছি ঢাকার মার্কিন রাষ্ট্রদূত আর্ন মিলারের সাথে। Excellency, welcome to the show once again. Because of this COVID-19, I believe one of the most talked issues for Bangladesh, the Rohingya crisis. Do you think this issue is getting less important?
Because there is the concern about what you might call compassion fatigue, or where people turn the page and no longer pay attention to this crisis, particularly as we confront this global pandemic. As U.S. ambassador, it's my job to make sure that doesn't happen. I certainly understand the financial, and environmental, and security concerns the crisis presents the government of Bangladesh, and the United States will continue to stand shoulder to shoulder with Bangladesh as we provide funding and assistance to Cox's Bazar, not just the Rohingya refugees, but also the host communities. And I'm glad you mentioned the sanctions. I mean, the U.S. is the world's leader in pressing Myanmar to create the conditions on the ground for the safe, dignified, sustainable, and voluntary return of Rohingya refugees to that country.
When the U.S. is talking about the values, especially human rights and practices, and we see such accidental matter happening in the U.S. and that mob is moving all around the world, that's really painful for me to watch. But how do you see that when the security forces behave like that?
Well, it's a great question, and painful for me as well. You know, the story of any democracy, of any nation, of the people, by the people, and for the people, is the struggle, imperfect and ongoing, to live up to our founding ideals. And this year, for our Independence Day, our 4th of July, we couldn't have the large public gathering, so I did. I gave my remarks virtually, and if I could, I'll read you a few paragraphs of what I said to our mission community addressing this issue that we all feel so very deeply. And I said that 244 years ago, the founders of the United States of America declared a new nation and a revolutionary idea: we are created equal. We are free to govern ourselves. Each of us is entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That declaration changed the world because Americans never treated those self-evident truths as self-executing. And generations of Americans have marched and organized and petitioned and protested and fought and even died to extend those rights to others, to widen the circle of opportunity, to perfect the union we celebrate on Independence Day. So in this most extraordinary of American times, our nation is in the middle of a reckoning of the pains and torments of centuries of injustice, and that is righteous and necessary. And I received a message a couple of weeks ago from a senior Bangladeshi government official, a great friend of mine. We have very candid conversations, and he's frequently quite critical of the United States foreign policy. And he wrote, "The more I see open debates in the USA, the more I understand the strength of America." And then, of course, his next message was more lively criticism of the USA. But that's exactly right. The people of America have an obligation, a duty as responsible citizens, to ensure the country that we love lives up to that revolutionary document, that trumpet call that we call our Declaration of Independence. Progress in the United States, in Bangladesh, anywhere in the world is not assured. History is not linear. We have to impose our will on it. One of our greatest Americans, Martin Luther King, said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice." But in my view, we have to bend it. And my beloved country, 244 years young, I'm actually proud of the United States right now, because we're seeing the best of our citizens in many ways. We're seeing this broad spectrum of people go out in the street and protest and hold up a mirror to areas in our society we simply have to do better. All of us. We have to address our common humanity and decency. We have to get out there and show our compassion and energy and wisdom, which we all have in abundance. And of course, that that wonderful American quality of optimism and our righteous anger at injustice.
But we have to go for another break, and we'll come back and talk about the latest traffic in person reporting, where Bangladesh have done a pretty good, I would say. দর্শক, আলোচনার পরে যে আরো একটা বিরতি নিচ্ছি, সাথে থাকুন, ফিরছি একটু পর। দর্শক, আমন্ত্রণ আরো একবার মুখোমুখিতে। আজকে আমাদের সাথে আছেন ঢাকার মার্কিন রাষ্ট্রদূত আর্ন মিলার। Excellency, welcome to the show once again. And as we have seen the latest TIP report where Bangladesh came out of the watch list, but what else can be done?
That's a great question, and it really is encouraging that there was a whole of society approach to addressing this issue in Bangladesh, and for this annual congressionally mandated report on trafficking in persons, Bangladesh has gone from what's called Tier 2 watch list to Tier 2. And that was a heavy lift. And it took great dedication and teamwork and hats off. It's a wonderful accomplishment. In Bangladesh, my first public appearance was the rollout of the National Plan of Action on Human Trafficking, right, with the Home Minister and others. Because it is one of my very top priorities. This country is capable of going to Tier 1 and being a model for the region on how to deal with human trafficking. Continue to tackle this really horrific crime. First, by fully using these new anti-human trafficking courts to resolve cases that are in the pipeline. We're waiting to be heard. Second, by prioritizing the care and rehabilitation of trafficking victims. Third, by strengthening the institutional safeguards for Bangladeshis seeking to work abroad. Mm-hmm. And fourth, by investigating and prosecuting sex traffickers, including in licensed brothels. Mm-hmm. There's also the issue of trafficking of Rohingya, who are especially vulnerable. And that's complicated, of course, by the challenge of COVID-19. So we continue to work with the government of Bangladesh, with IOM, with the UN, with our civil society partners to work on this issue. And I'm very encouraged, and I hope in my next year and a half we can see Bangladesh continue with this really admirable progress.
Right. I'm also hopeful like you, because we have seen quite a lot of progress that Bangladesh government is quite serious. Excellency, we are about to end the first episode, but before we end, let's hear the song for the frontline fighters, made by USAID. Let's hear.
Wearing your mask.
And I'll definitely see you in the next episode, and we'll talk about more of US-Bangladesh trade, the Indo-Pacific corridor. I guess that's your favorite. So we'll talk about in the next episode. But before we say goodbye, let's wear the mask and let's listen to the song. আমরা গানটা শুনতে শুনতে আজকের এপিসোড থেকে বিদায় নিচ্ছি। পরবর্তী এপিসোডে ঢাকার মার্কিন রাষ্ট্রদূত আমাদের সাথে থাকবেন এবং আমরা অন্যান্য ইস্যুগুলো নিয়েও কথা বলবো।
আছি আমি ঘরে,
জানি আছো তোমরা সবাই, তবু কিছু মানুষ নীরবে
আমাদের কারণে করছে লড়াই। জীবনকে